It's all cool that you're going to all these open houses and parties and office meetings. None of that shit pays the bills. I don't know how the state exam is there for you guys, but the state exam in California is a joke.
All right, welcome everybody to the Closing Table Podcast. We've got a special guest with us today. This is Lee Arnold. He has been in real estate for 25 years. He's out in San Diego, California. He's married, got 2 kids, broker owner. And the thing that was really intriguing to me being in real estate and getting to know Lee a little bit has been how he gained a 68% market share in his area that he sells real estate, which is in our industry, it is extremely hard to do. So the fact that he's already kind of figured that out is pretty awesome. So Lee, thanks for joining us, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little about yourself. And first off, well, I want to jump into the market share thing, but tell me where you're at, where that market share is, and what does that really mean in real estate? And then we'll jump into like, how did it happen? How'd you get in real estate? All that stuff.
So the like you said, Ryan, I'm in San Diego, California, and while in California you can be licensed to sell the entire state, obviously we have no business selling outside of our general area just because we're not the market experts and we don't really know it well. But what I've done is I've kind of hyper focused on the neighborhood that my wife and I first bought our first home in, and got our first dog, brought the boys home from the hospital at, and it was new construction. We were all googly eyed over that, and we were a lot of the neighbors were first time home buyers. So, and we were kind of out in northern San Diego, just right beside below Riverside. So if you're a wine person, you know Temecula, California, right? So it's the southern Napa, right? And the reality is that there's not a lot of stuff. And by stuff, I mean infrastructure, so shopping and stuff like that. So a lot of people rely on each other to get eggs, sugar, milk, in an emergency type of situation, right? And so by dumb luck, we started a Facebook group for the neighborhood. And this is really before Facebook groups really took off and kind of became a thing. And, so now it turned into, hey, does anybody have a cup of sugar? Hey, I'm looking for a 2x4. Does anybody have a good housekeeper? My garage door broke. Anybody got a plumber? My water heater just blew up, right? And it just became a neighbor sharing of whatever. And then naturally, it turned into, by default with me being a real estate broker, I was like, yeah, I've got this guy, I've got that guy, and I would gladly share all the information. And I was sharing people that I had vetted already and made sure that there's people that, for the most part, were going to be reliable vendors, to help my neighbors out. And so I became known as the mayor of the neighborhood because people are always like, Lee goes everything. Ironically, before we jumped on this call, I actually had a neighbor message me saying, our insurance company has dropped us. Of all people, I figured you would know, who do people use? And so even now, 15-ish years later, I'm still the go-to guy. And then kind of layer that with the fact that in San Diego, we have a super heavy military presence, right? So we've got the largest military installation on the West Coast at Camp Pendleton. We have Coronado, which is obviously beautiful and all the wonderful things that Coronado is. Miramar, Top Gun, right? Everybody knows Top Gun. And so our military presence is ginormous. And so with that, though, brings heavy turnover, right? We were seeing for a long time a really big turnover in our neighborhood. I think Ryan, when we last chatted about it, I think I had like a 16% at one year, which was just absolutely insane.
Is that just because it's military focused, or is that
primarily military? Yeah, it was. During that time, it was mostly military, and so. We're still seeing a very high turnover. The neighborhood still kind of tends to be a first-time home buyer price point. So it does.
What is that? What is that in San Diego? Just out of curiosity.
The low end's going to be about 600, on the high end 900.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So
different here in Houston.
That's the
But yes,
reality of it, though, right?
yeah,
That's California,
right.
right? So I gotta remember, we're not selling. We all love the trash TV, and I'm guilty of this with selling Sunset and Beverly Hills and this, that, and all the Bravo, HGTV, whatever Netflix specials, right? But the reality is there are people in California that are not buying $3 million studios,
Right.
right? And we're also not selling real estate in a tuxedo. So,
That's right.
but when you come back to the neighborhood, it's because it's such a high turnover, it lended me to be the kind of the go-to guy by default, because everyone's like, well, you know everybody, you're in real estate, you do property management, you do sales, so you're a guy, right? And you're here in the neighborhood. And so I kind of turned into that guy, and it was, honest to God, it was, well, I don't want to say dumb luck, but it was kind of the fruits of the labor, right? Because I was freely giving out information and became known, liked, and trusted. And so people were always kind of like, well, we kind of have this real estate agent, but we haven't heard from him in 3 years since we sold the house, and we hear from you all the time. We get your flyers, we go to your events, you're the guy, you've reached out to us multiple times whenever we needed something, so you're our guy. We're going to hire you. And so now fast forward, what's been kind of cool is now that we've had enough time for homes to turn over multiple times, I'm now at the point where I'm selling homes for the second and third time. So I sold it, the buyer has now turned into my seller client, right? And so now I'm selling it home 2 and 3 times later, and it's been kind of cool because, again, real estate agents sell the home and then they never hear, the clients never hear from them again. So that's been really cool.
And so that was, it's interesting because too, I'd love to hear your take on just like knowing other industries that, like in real estate, we're very like locked in our, very geographic, but there's a lot of people I know in other industries that want to have, that type of a market share. And maybe maybe it's a small business, a coffee shop, a local restaurant or something that wants to be like, hey, the go-to spot of like, how did that happen? Which is a little bit different real estate. So at some point I want to get into that journey. Tell me about real estate. And so now you're 68% market share agent in that same community that you guys moved into. And I'm assuming living there really did help out.
Tremendously, obviously, because, I would have people call me like, hey, can you come over? I'm like, yeah, I can be there in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. So that was convenient. But at the same time, people, we've said it before, and we've heard it. If you listen to any podcast or any real estate coach, they want to deal with people that they know, like, and trust. And that really is true, But the reality is right now, what has also now been another layering effect and a competitive advantage to mine versus other agents that try to do business in the neighborhood is that because I sell 3 out of every 4 homes sold, right? So if you think about it, every 4 homes that are sold, I'm selling or represent the buyer on 3 of them, right? Which means I'm controlling the market.
Right.
Which also means that agents know, and by agents I mean agents outside the neighborhood, know that if they want to come in and bring a buyer into the neighborhood, they're going to cross my path at some point, so they might as well reach out to me. So I, many times over the last probably 5 years, have had agents call me. Hey, Lee, and I'll talk about my friend Myra. She called me. She said, hey, Lee, I got a house. I got a buyer. What do you got? Ironically, we were just canceling escrow on one. I said, I have the house. And we just closed escrow about 3 weeks ago. So we technically sold the house off market. And I get a lot of people where they're saying, hey, I've got this client. This is what their budget is. Keep me posted. They're not in a rush. And so now I've got that in my little memory bank. And so as soon as I go on a listing appointment, I'll be like, by the way, I've got your buyer in my pocket over here. And sometimes it was in my pocket, and sometimes it was in, obviously another agent's pocket as well. But what I would do is I would bring them together and say, hey, look, no showings, no open houses. You don't even have to stage your house. Just clean it up for me, please. Like, close the toilet seats and pick up the toys,
right.
And that was usually the extent of the marketing. And we would sell the house off market, and it always came with a premium. So this is the off market price. I'm going to list the house at let's say 775. If you want this house off market, you're paying 800.
Right.
So they would always pay a premium. So my client was stoked because they're like, "Are you kidding me? I get a premium like a bidding war, but I don't have to show my home or do anything else."
Yeah, totally. I mean, I totally get it. When you get to that point where whatever industry you in, you have that type of market share, it's so compounding effect of like the other opportunities it brings you. My question too is like, tell me about the journey of where you first started in real estate, where that, and I know you started off, did you start off in property management and then went to real estate? And then what were kind of the key lessons you learned that because like I would bet, and I mean, I'm in the same category. Like I have a farm area, I'm working it, I'm trying to build my market share continually. And it's a lot easier now by far than it was when I was like, we have 500 realtors in our neighborhood. When I was like number 60, it was way harder then to do something that it is now. But I would love to hear what were kind of some of the lessons you learned from your starting career to where because I'm guessing, and you tell me if it's truth, the business that you're doing now, you probably enjoy the way you're doing it than you did when you started.
Oh my gosh, dude. Okay, when I started, I was 17 years old. I was literally a senior in high school.
Awesome.
And the reality is I needed a job. And I was a senior in high school. All my friends, now this is back when we were, taking SATs, right? And everyone's going to college and talking about, where they're going to go, what they're going to do. And I'm like, dude, we just did 12 years of hell. I ain't going to college. Like, get me out of the prison. Like, that was my MO, right?
Right.
And I was not sure where I wanted to go with my life, blah, blah, blah. So then one of my friends that I had grown up with, her parents were in construction, big time. Like out here, they built big construction. They built a lot of franchise buildings, Hooters, Dairy Queens, a lot of those kind of franchises. And the wife loved flipping houses. And so she was my carpool mom. And so every once in a while, she'd be like, I gotta make a stop. She was crazy. I love her. I'm actually doing a deal with her right now, which is ironic. She's like, oh, Lee, we gotta go stop. I gotta go pick up keys. So we go to this house. And I'm like, well, what are you guys doing here? She's like, oh, well, we bought it. And I'm like, oh, are you guys moving? She goes, no, we're flipping it. I'm like, what does flipping it mean, right? And so she kind of explained, like, we buy it, we fix it up because they're in construction, and then we sell it and we make a profit. I'm like, oh, well, that's cool. I go, it seems like anybody could do that, So then the relationship was made with the people that were selling her the house. I made contact with them through our church, and I reached out to him my senior year. I was like, hey, dude, can I just have like an internship or whatever? He's like, well, I don't have an internship, but I do need someone to literally answer phones at the front desk Monday through Friday from 1 to 5 in the afternoon shift. This is back when they were shutting down for lunch from 12 to 1 because, they were antiques, right? That's what you did in real estate is you shut down and you actually closed your door, locked it, right, and flipped the sign and went to lunch. And I was like, okay, cool. So I just started by default making, I don't know, 10, 12 bucks an hour, answering phones. I was the front desk receptionist. And then fast forward, I ended up being the general manager of the company. Now, mind you, we were a boutique company, so I think at the time we had total 30 employees. This was strictly property management. So we were strictly doing residential leasing for, houses, condominiums, and smaller apartment buildings. And then we grew. I did business development, which I really enjoyed. And so when I started, we had about 100-ish single-family homes that we managed. And when I left, we had about 650, I think, was about the count. And the reason I left, ironically, was I got fired. So as the general manager, number 2 in the company, I was actually fired. And that caught me off guard like a ton of bricks. Yeah. And it literally came out of nowhere. It was, what I thought was devastating. My life had ended. What am I going to do? Blah, 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 right? And so then, ironically enough, my brother-in-law and my aunt, both who really don't know each other, both individually called me and said, you need to start your own company. And I said, what? No, I just need a job, right? Like I was so blindfolded by everything. I was like, no, I just need a job. I wasn't thinking clearly and rationally because, like I said, this was the company I was supposed to take over. We had those kind of conversations. I was going to buy them out, because their kids didn't want anything to do with it. And so then I ended up starting my own company, started Benchmark. And we just started with property management, and then honestly,
So that's when you started. You were just doing property. That
just
was
doing
it.
property
Yeah.
management. So I was just doing leasing because that's what I knew, and I did a good job at it. And
Yeah.
so then, we had our babies, which was great, and I had some friends in the industry step in, and they said, "Go be with your family, go enjoy your babies. I will cover your company for the next 2 weeks," which was the best gift ever, honestly. What competitor does that, right? Like, what other broker says, "Hey, I'll go show your properties for you while you go on vacation and you can earn all the commission," right? So it was cool. And then we started, and then honestly, the demand happened not just naturally, where people would be like, "Lee, I don't know any real estate agents. I don't know what I'm doing. You've been with me for 5, 6 years now at this point. Would you just sell the property for me?" And I was like, "Sure." And I would call my friend. I'm like, "What the heck do I do? I don't know what I'm doing." Right? I don't even know. I don't know what a listing agreement is. I don't know what the heck that has to happen. Whatever, right? And so then, fast forward, I started realizing, I'm like, wow, this is actually one extremely lucrative, right? And then also became honestly more enticing because it was new to me, right? It was very intriguing that there was a whole other side of real estate that I really wasn't ever truly exposed to. And I hate to say this, but it's the truth, and I speak the truth, and I don't mince my words. The buyers and sellers were more appreciative of my efforts and what I did. And I just felt like the people in property management honestly didn't give a shit. I would have owners that would call me and be like, "I can't believe you replaced my garbage disposal." I'm like, "Well, it was broken. What do you want me to do?" Or, "I could have fixed that toilet flapper for free." I'm like, "Well, you didn't, because you moved to Japan and you hired a property manager and the tenant doesn't know what the heck they're doing. So yeah, it's going to cost you." I would joke all the time. Yeah, there is the $75 toilet flapper. It happens, it's part of being a landlord, and I just kind of, and the reality is that I was getting all of this flack and feedback and negativity from these property owners for 100, 200, $300 a month on management fees. I was like, right. Now, of course, I'm talking about a very small percentage of people. The majority of the people were wonderful. They left me alone. They didn't bug me. They knew, and I had my processes, so it wasn't like it was ever a surprise to them. But it just got to the point where I was like, I'm just so sick and tired of dealing with people who really don't appreciate the fact that I'm maintaining their largest investment for them, which means it's gaining equity. I'm looking out for them. I'm making sure that their home's not being trashed or has a squatter in it, because in California, good luck getting them out, right? And it just seemed to be, anyway, so got into real estate sales, obviously made more money, made more better connections with people, felt more appreciative of the work that I've done, and it just became more fun, honestly. It really did.
So what was the transition from going? I mean, obviously you can tell, like, okay, I'm doing this for this amount. I see that it's kind of doing similar stuff, but whatever. What made you go, all right, I'm just going to go do it. I'm done.
One of my really good friends that I had grown up with, he called me and said, "Hey, I want to rent out my home. I bought another home, and I want to rent this one out." I said, "Okay, cool." So I rented out. Rented it, I think, for 2 or 3 years. And he was great. Had a couple of maintenance issues, whatever, come up, and he goes, "Okay, I'm over it. I want to sell it. It's not keeping, I thought it was going to be more of a tax break benefit for me, and it's not. So let's sell it." And he goes, I want you to sell it." I was like, okay. It's like, here we go. And so once we did that, and then I realized, and I went through it with him, and ironically, we're still friends today. We actually go to the desert together, and our kids are similar stages. We go to each other's birthday parties and whatever. And I remember one time him telling me, because I think I straight up asked him, I said, "Why'd you, work with me or whatever like that?" And he goes, "You're always straight up with me. You always told me the truth. You didn't, sugarcoat anything. You told me how it was, and you were honest when you didn't know the answer." And that's one thing that I learned from my old company, and I've told my employees, and agents now, is that I go, don't ever make up an answer. If you don't know, tell them, say, "You know what, I'm not sure. Let me find out and I'll get back to you." I said, no one's gonna get mad at you for that. I said, and if you do, give me their number. I'll call them. and that's been the truth is every time I say, God, you know what? I don't know. Let me find out and I'll get back to you. They're cool. So that whole experience confirmed to me, okay, I can do this. I got it. It's not as scary as I thought it would be. It's totally doable.
That's awesome. And so what was your journey from when you went into real estate to going 68% market share? What were the, and more also like, what were the lessons you learned that maybe even what not to do and then what to do? I feel like a lot of times I learn lessons of what to do way later than I learn what not to do. I learned what not to do first, and then it.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we learn the lesson the hard way, right?
Yeah.
What I have found, and what I've kind of told myself over the years, is if I could go back and tell Lee Arnold, the 28-year-old that's in real estate, stop the self-doubt.
Yeah.
The limiting factors, the self-doubt, the you don't deserve it, or the you can't do it, or my favorite is this is how we've always done it.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, I've had conversations with that guy that fired me. We've had some really good conversations in the past. And what's been really cool is for me to sit there and go, you know what? I know I can do this better. I know I can be more efficient. It doesn't have to be that way, this way, one way or the other. And to see that you can still provide a quality level of service to a client, and you don't have to be in a suit, in an office, paying an ungodly amount of overhead and rent on a main street in order to do that job. And while, of course, there's a time and a place for that, at the end of the day, I mean, like I used to have an office, and it dawned on me, I was talking to my wife, and I'm like, in the last year, I have not had one person come here. Why are we paying rent?
Right.
Why are we doing this? And so anyway, the self-limiting, that's what I would say is, you got to have more belief in yourself and belief in your ability to learn, be coachable, be impressionable, be willing to be humble and say, I don't know. And to say, hey, you know what? I'm not sure what's going on, but I will find out. To say, my new agent right now, he was a major in the Marine Corps. I mean, very high ranking. And he's now starting over theoretically in his, life. And he's been very humble. And he's been like, I don't know what I don't know. And to come from a place of learning, I think that was big for me too. Is I would say also, I wish I had the opportunity to go to conferences or trainings that are available to all of us now. But the reality is, I mean, you can't go back in time and
Right.
wish whatever. But I also look at, I was with a company that was very antiquated. Right when I started at 17 years old, we had a fax machine.
Right.
That was our method of communication.
Right. Yeah.
Right. That was 1999.
Yeah. I've only been in the industry for, I'm in my 7th year now. And part of I think what's helped me is I've had a lot of experience in other industries outside of this, that had really helped. I mean, had I started when I was 17, I would have way more learning lessons and whatnot. But here's a question to me. I think you're 100% right on the self-limiting. I'm curious your thought on this because you've been in the industry for 25 years. Mm-hmm. You see a lot of agents that come in today that I almost feel like they're opposite. They're not self-limiting. They're like, I'm going to go get in this industry and I'm going to crush it. And I'm going to it's going to look like I'm on HGTV. And I don't know if they really understand the work it takes, especially when you're starting new, what it takes to grow a real estate business when there's 1.5 million competitors in the country. Yeah. So there's that side of it, which I see a lot of. And part of me is like, all right, keep going, keep trying, keep thinking you're limitless, because the lessons you learn along the way will help you realize what you're good at, what you're not good at, whatever the lessons. But then there are people that I've seen, and some of even my coaching clients who've been doing real estate for 25 years and literally have been doing the exact same thing for 25 years, staying in the exact same spot and not moving forward. And part of it is like, I could never do that. I mean, like, where do you find the balance of, and I probably would guess more of the experienced people live in they're limiting themselves, and the new people are coming in with a little naive and going, I'm going to crush it. So if you're in the industry now, and let's just say you don't have 25 years experience, how do you come into this industry?
I would say that, one, I agree with you. It's good that some of these newer people are coming in with this, like, go get them, watch me roar, hear me roar, whatever it is, watch me, right? Like, I'm going to do this. Because you kind of have to have a little bit of that grit in you, because, really, it's a very thankless job until you get paid, right? Like, right. It's all cool that you're going to all these open houses and parties and office meetings. None of that shit pays the bills.
Right.
Right? So you need some of that go get 'em attitude. But I think what's, by default, a lot of that is either the people that are coming in now either are younger by generation, or they are influenced by Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, right? And that's why I think, whereas people, like, when I was in 1999, we didn't have Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, none of social media existed, right? Wait, maybe MySpace. I think MySpace was around. But still, regardless, you have people that have easier access to technology. Like, we didn't have the types of cell phones that we have now, where you can just watch a quick video while you're waiting for the dentist or you're doing something. And you can get these kind of quick Gary V, TED Talk kind of inspirational things. Whereas now you do, and so they're like, well, I've got a little bit of a taste, right? Because they've seen Selling Sunset, they've seen $1 Million Listing New York, they've seen all of us real estate agents and brokers put out some sort of content that tells stories, right, about our journey, about what we've done, about what we're going through, about our client wins or client losses. And so, in a way, they've kind of already gone to school, if you think about it. And frankly, I'll tell you what, right now, I'm going to pick on the California Association of Realtors and the DRE up here. There's probably more educational content on Instagram alone that is truly applicable to how to do the job here in California. I'm speaking just California, of course, but essentially nationwide, than there is on the actual state exam. And I don't know how the state exam is there for you guys, but the state exam in California is a joke. My new agent, I just helped him out. And the reality is, I said, don't try to learn how to sell real estate from the exam. Right. Learn how to pass the exam.
Yeah, the exam here is I would say, no offense if you're watching Trek, but the information on there is more to not help you get sued, but that it's so rare. Like, it doesn't teach you how to sell at all, and it barely teaches you about the contracts. But yeah, but the other part to it too, Lee, is just like, there's so much, like, social media is such a big, everybody thinks I go do social media and I'm going to get, 5 sales off of it this week. I'm like, it is such a long-term play. Like, you can't just hop on social media, do a dance at a realtor meme, and you're gonna get a bunch of clients. Like, it just doesn't work that way, But a lot of people come in thinking that.
Right, exactly. And that's kind of like what we talked about with, farming. I didn't just get market share overnight. It was accelerated a lot faster than statistically people are expecting, so I'm very grateful for that. However, it's layering. People want to see you over and over and over again. And I've got people that I personally know, I don't know that they follow me on Instagram or I don't pay attention, but they're like, I'll see them in person and they're like, oh my gosh, I love your videos, or I see your stuff, or I thought this was great. I'm like, shit, I didn't even know you were paying attention, and so it's there if you do the work. And I think that's the key, right? Is, we hear over and over again, you got to do the work.
Yeah. So, now tell me a little bit about, before I get into that, I say, I do think I do think like when you get to a certain level of business, I mean, it obviously sounds to me that you have a natural skill for developing and growing, because like whatever job you've been in, you've kind of taken it to that level, right? So that's natural in you. And I'm sure the self-limiting talk probably comes in for me, like, and I'm curious your thought on it. Whenever I decide to go do something new that no one's done before, and what I end up finding is interesting. Really, the reason people don't do the thing, like I'll have this idea, go, hey, we should do this type of a marketing piece, or we should do this type of a video or whatever, and for a listing, and no one's done it in my farm, and I'll go, why has no one done this? And usually the reason I come down to is one, it's usually either money, it costs money, either too much, or two, it's all about how you're going to be perceived in this, whether like I'm going to look stupid, to me, it always comes down to that. Like, am I going to be perceived as cocky? Am I going to be perceived as stupid? Am I going to be perceived as not professional? Whatever it might be. But in the end, I finally have started, and if you guys people know me, I finally just gone like, forget it. I'm just going to do what I think is best. I'm going to try to have a sound mind, have good self-awareness, whatever. But what I think is best, I'm going to run the numbers. It's going to be edgy, might be pushy, but I'm going to take the risk. And when I have made those decisions, 9 times out of 10, it's gone in a positive direction. There have been times where I failed or I looked stupid or whatever. But in the end, I don't really care anymore. Like at this point in my life, I'm 44. I don't really care. I'm trying to grow a business. One of the biggest things, I'm curious your thought on this. So the office that I'm actually in right now, like we're not in my farm at all. We're outside of my farm. No one sees it. It's purely here for a office space. We're looking at purchasing this big lease space right on the main highway of my 12,000 home farm. No other team has it. And purely to be like in the middle of the community, but we're going to do events all the time there. Half of the whole building is going to be flex layout, so people can come in, have coffee, have a beer, have a glass of wine, if they want free Wi-Fi, and then all of our events, if we're not holding them somewhere else, we're going to do there. It's expensive, man. Commercial retail lease for this is expensive. But I'm also like, my gut is telling me no one's doing it. No one provides that type of a face-to-face experience anymore. This is where I'm at right now. I'm leaning toward doing it. I feel like it's gonna be a great win, but this stuff comes up all the time. So curious your thought of what I just said, of that whole spiel about risk versus kind of reward.
So specifically regarding
just the whole thing. This is the one thing I'm in right now. This is the one thing I'm in right now.
Listen to your gut and you've trusted it and you've done it, it's going to win, do it.
Yeah.
You'll figure it out.
Yeah. That's what I feel. But I just feel like for a lot of agents, that's stuff, those opportunities, not specifically lease space, but opportunities like that come up and they're not willing to take the risk. And I feel like when you take the risk, tell me about I know you did a lot of events in your farm. The first event you ever did, were you nervous that people were going to show up?
Oh my God, yes. Jeez, are you kidding? Yeah, absolutely.
And you're worried about the money you're going to spend to make it happen?
All the stuff.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So tell us a little about that journey when you finally went, all right, I'm going hardcore in my farm to gain market share. How did you strategize it? What did you do? What were some of the lessons you learned to where you got to where you're at now?
So my personality type is I do a lot of stuff on the fly. Drives my wife bonkers, right? But she's a school teacher. She's a planner. I'm a squirrel, fly by the seat of my pants, which is why, frankly, I got into coaching, because I was like, okay, I need to, hyper focus on stuff like that. But what I did was, we've heard it said before, and I'm not saying anything, groundbreaking here, which is you got to do the stuff that other agents aren't willing to do, right? There's no other team that is willing to go in and write the check for that rent space, right? I'm going to tell you right now, though, Ryan, you see someone else's sign go up there, you're going to be pissed.
Yeah, you're right. 100%.
So might as well put yours up, okay? Because it's going to happen. It's going to happen. So now I'm going to start bugging you about that. But the reality is that I was when I decided, okay, I'm going to double down on my farm. And I said, okay, first things first is I'm going to do these flyers, the brochures, what we call monthly market updates, right? And by default, there was a lady that was doing them in my neighborhood, and she was the queen of the neighborhood for a long time. And hers were always on a yellow piece of paper, tri-folded, black and white ink, or black ink, basic, and it had, cute little graphic on the top, and it said, hey, 123 Banana Street sold for this, and everybody looked at it because it was really the only thing. And then I said, okay, how am I going to do better than that? Well, one is I'm not going to use copy paper, because that's what it was. And I'm not knocking on her, because what she did worked. I'm going to do full color. I'm going to do cardstock, double-sided, glossy. This shit's going to look good, right? Like, you're not going to miss it, right? So I did that, and I got a listing first time, right away. And then I started realizing, okay, what is it that people are looking for, right? People always want to know, because they're looking on there, okay, what sold in the last 30 days here in the neighborhood? 123 Banana Street, because they're looking for their floor plan, right? Oh, I know their house. My house is much nicer than that house, right? Everyone says, I have the nicest house. We did all these upgrades. And on the back, what I would start doing is I would start putting relevant either community information, event information. If we had an event coming up, I'd promote the event. If there was any kind of school information, I'd put the school information there. And then I also would then start doing compare and contrasting. And I started, this is where I really started to ruffle feathers. And I'll tell you a really good story here about it.
I love the rustling feathers stuff.
Oh, yeah, dude, I'm all about it. I am all about it. My board hates me, dude. I'm not kidding. I actually have to send a cease and desist to my board because it's getting pretty bad. Where I would say, okay, this house, and I would actually go and take a picture of it with my iPhone, right? Because I'm not going to steal photos because I would get in trouble for that. Take a picture of the house, sold, public information, sold on this date for this amount of money. Listed by a discount broker. Versus Lee's beautiful sunset, twilight photo, sold for this much more with an actual local broker. Don't leave money on the table, right? Like, I had all these great marketing things like that. Well, I got one. I would do that. I would kind of sprinkle that in every once in a while. And I did one that really pissed off some agents. But I'm not marketing myself to agents. I'm marketing myself to homeowners who want to sell their home. Literally sold. Okay, so I sold this one house. The buyer then resold it but didn't hire me, which of course I was pissed. And it was on my street. So I was like, really? But whatever.
Right. I've had that happen for sure. Yeah.
The karma, though, was that they listed their home. 3 days later, I listed the exact same model around the corner within probably 200, about 100 yards, right? Distance-wise. Same exact floor plan. We closed 2 days apart from each other, and I sold my listing for $100,000 more.
Wow. That's awesome.
The listing broker is an out-of-state broker on that other house. So you bet your butt I straight up promoted that because it's all public information. Right? Now, I did not post anything about the agent because that's disparaging of an agent and whatever. It's a whole other podcast. But I should have said, these people left $100,000 on the table. Well, one of the agents in my neighborhood thought that was just egregious and that I would talk so negatively and that it wasn't proof and that it wasn't and my client, blah, 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 blah. So I had to go to a hearing and I ripped my board apart. Absolutely ripped them apart. So I said, tell me what is unethical about this? What is wrong with this? Everything's public information. Nothing I shared or posted, there's nothing that you can't find in the county records. You're going to go yell at Zillow for doing the same thing? Because I got all my information, ironically, from Zillow.
Right.
So you got to go and push the envelope because what I'm trying to show my clients, potential clients that are interviewing me every time they get their mail and they get one of my postcards is, why is Lee better?
Yep.
Why is Lee not the average realtor? What does Lee do different? How did someone who didn't use Lee fare versus someone who did use Lee?
So that was one.
Why?
that's obviously seems. Was there any failures you had along the way? I mean, I'm sure there's some, but there any ones that you were like, man, I really learned from that, and that really helped me realize don't ever do that again, or
Okay, actually,
that definitely wasn't the right direction. It sound because what you're doing here sound like great. I mean, it sounded like you're doing all the right stuff there.
yeah. So those are good. Honestly, what I learned recently, I would say in the last 2 years, is if there's a problem that you can write a check for, you don't have a problem. Write the check.
Yeah, I've got plenty of those.
Yeah.
But you're right.
So,
And especially in your farm. Like the hard part is like when people start to find out they can take advantage of that, how do you overcome? But yeah. Here's a question too, and then we'll wrap up here in a minute, but just such a cool story to hear of what, everything and that's always, every time I talk to someone on this, it's like hearing the story of how they got to where they're at, to where they came from, and all the journeys in between. A lot of people who aren't in real estate, maybe it's small business, and all the lessons you've learned from gaining this type of market share. What would be some of those key lessons that you think could translate over to small business, anything when other companies are trying to gain market share? And I kind of put you on the spot there, but just curious if you can think of some of those.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I remember was my wife and I, when we were first married, we bought a used car, and we were so thrilled. I think we got a Honda Accord for like 15 grand, and man, oh gosh, that was so cool. And that was a damn good car too, let me tell you what. But the sales lady, was referred to us by the accountant at my old company. She goes, "Oh, you got to call Peggy." I remember her name now, 15 years later, whatever it's been. Peggy. You got to call Peggy. She's amazing. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I call Peggy, and Peggy's like, "Oh, God, sweetie, come in. I got something for you." Da, da, da. So I go, we meet, we buy the car, off we go. That's not the money and the magic. The magic is that Peggy would literally mail out mailers to her entire database once a month, maybe it was once a quarter, but regardless, it was religiously. And it would be on, Peggy was a little bit older, and so it would be on almost like a stationery that had like a border around it, and she would type out, "Hey, it's Peggy, your local car lady. If you need any cars, I'm your girl. By the way, if you have a friend that's looking for a car, hook me up, give him my number, I'd love to chat with you." And I'll, I think she would even every once in a while throw in like whoever sends me a referral will get a $25 Olive Garden gift card. I don't know, something like that, right? And I was like, dude, this is a used car saleswoman marketing like a real estate broker to her database, and it obviously worked for her because I was referred to her, and then we referred people to her because the experience of working with her. She was not a local dealership. We could have gone anywhere. CarMax and all the other, auto traders and all the stuff of the world all existed. But I would say there are opportunities, especially now with the advent of TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, I think is very highly underutilized, and the reality is that, there's a brand new sushi restaurant that just opened up in my neighborhood, and the local community is doing a really good job of promoting him because everyone's just stoked, right? Like, oh my God, there's a new sushi restaurant, and everyone's talking about it in our Facebook group. But I feel like they are potentially missing an opportunity because while it's good and new and fresh and fun, everyone's going to go. But then eventually that's going to taper off, right?
Right.
When you go there and you check in on an iPad, why not ask the question, "Hey, what's your phone number or email? We'll text you a 25% off coupon for your next visit." Point is gathering information, right? I'm going to an event this weekend. It's my first time at an event, so talk about being nervous. I'm at my first event in a new neighborhood, in my new farm. And I've been doing so successful in other areas, but I'm nervous because it's a new one.
Right.
I'm going to Costco today to buy a TV, to raffle off a $200 TV, right? But I'm gathering information, right? I've got my graphics design, they're making hey, QR code, scan it, we're going to raffle off a TV. I'm gathering information. And that's where I think a lot of people, real estate brokers, and you freely give your contact information to your dentist, your doctor, your lawyer, your whatever, right?
Right.
Well, why isn't our plumber ever saying, "Hey guys, just want to check in with you. How your toilet's flushing?"
Right. Right.
My AC, now I will say the AC industry, I don't know how it is out there for you guys, but out here they've actually been a lot better where they're actually trying to promote and be like, hey, free tune up.
No, yeah, no, we have. It's so hot and humid here that everybody needs AC. So
Guaranteed business.
yeah, you got business if you can start
Yeah.
a company.
So, but those kind of things where it's like, hey, let's check up. How are you doing? I mean, shoot me a text for God's sakes. Like, why is it so hard to not even get a text from them?
Yeah,
Why are they doing it? I don't know.
yeah.
But then I can sit there and point and look at us and say, Ryan, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't I doing that?
Well, obviously you're. I mean, you're. I think too the thing is like the know, like, trust. You've done that. Seems like you've nailed that in your farm. And for me, I've always tried to kind of be like I mean, Tom has always said that deliver value. Whether you get anything in return, you deliver value, and
Always.
usually you'll get something in return. Even if you don't, you do it. For me, I've always just tried to be like the go-to guy. If you need a good plumber, if you need a good AC guy. I mean, you said you were kind of doing the same stuff. I just think of like, you're right, man, dude. Like, so for instance, in our neighborhood, we have this one place, and I've been in my neighborhood for 7 years now. We've had this one retail spot that's literally had 6 restaurants at the same spot. Just keeps flipping and flipping and flipping and flipping. And everybody loves them when they first come in, but you're right. After a while, it goes old. So how do you take what you've done in gaining that market share and transfer it to those people for them to lose less? The reality is, like, in real estate, we kind of learn how to market. I don't know necessarily if the restaurant industry, that's a thing for them. I mean, the big franchises, sure, but not like the little small town mom and pop stuff. But
I don't know. I always look at when I'm watching TV. Well, actually, I don't do it really. So if I'm watching something or I see something or anytime I'm out and about or see a billboard, I always think, okay, how can I do that? Like if something catches my eye, I'm like, hey, that caught my eye. Why? I try to be cognizant of that. How can I translate that into my business? How can I replicate and duplicate that? How can I, you know, looking at outside industries, all the time. AT&T. I feel like it's the AT&T and Verizon war, right? Each one of them are just neck and neck for market share.
Yep.
They're just fighting each other, and how can we do that as brokers ethically? Where you kind of, without talking smack about the other company, but say, hey, look, we're doing this. This is our market share. This is what we do. Whatever. So I think looking at outside industries is also key.
if you're a new agent, and we'll kind of close with this one, and or not even new, but like you've not really gotten into a farm and you want to do that, or you've dabbled in it, whatever, if you give just like a quick few bullet points of what you would do if you were starting today, not everything, but the things you would start on today, what would you say?
I apologize, Ryan. You broke up there for just 1 second. Say that again.
So if you were a new agent, or you're an agent that had not really started really trying to build their presence in their farm and grow their business in their farm, what would be a few bullet points? Not everything you've done so far, but what would you today, in today's world, what would you suggest that they do?
Get in with the local schools if there is a local school in the farm.
Okay.
Get in with any kind of local businesses as well. Also, door knock the crap out of the neighborhood.
Okay.
Become valuable to the community. In some form or fashion. You can't do it all. So in some form or fashion, become valuable to the community.
I love that. Become valuable to community. That's awesome. I mean, someone who was the one that just told me that just heard this someone. Gosh, who was this? If you want to know what you're doing, if it's working or not, I'm gonna butcher it, but this is to what it is. If you were gone for a year, would it make any impact into the people you're surrounding? And whether you're in real estate or whatever, think about that.
Yeah, that's great.
If you remove yourself for a year, would that make an impact into the people that you're surrounding? I think that's it. But to me, that's what you're saying when you're saying be valuable to the community. Because when someone's a value, it's in some ways it's priceless. But well, thank you, Lee. Dude, you're doing great things. If you guys are out in San Diego, anybody needs a real estate agent, call Lee Arnold. Lee, I normally do my drink of choice, which Lee speaks my language because he said his drink of choice and I didn't have it. But one day we will share it. He's an old-fashioned guy like me. So one day we'll cheers it up at some Tom Ferry Summit or something like that. If you need to find Lee, where can they find you at, Lee? Online?
All the socials, all of the things. It's really simple. It's the Lee Arnold, and Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube's all the stuff, or Benchmark SoCal if you want to follow the business line. But Ryan, it's been absolutely wonderful chatting here with you. Thanks for having me on, and yeah, hopefully we'll get to that old fashioned sooner rather than later.
Yes, sir, man. I appreciate it, dude.